Hi everyone, Catherine here from Inky Fingered Cat. I am back with another Use Up a Magazine Kit video, again using the Kendra's Card Challenge, and I've got 3 different cards for us today. So for those that don't know, I'm going to go back and just say there is a video showing the cutting up of all the pieces and organising it, etc. Then there's a video showing you 3 different cards, and now there's another. This is the second video showing the next 3 cards. There's 15 sketches in total, so let's expect 5 videos maybe if I do 3 each time. No guarantee I will, but you know. These kinds of projects are great because it just means that I can pick them up, put them down as I wish. So this is sketch number 4, which involves those 2 pieces of pattern paper that are cut into triangles and a square piece. Now what I'm doing, even though the square piece I had cut it, and I think you probably saw it on the video, I'd cut it to show as, what's the word, the hummingbird. But it's not a prominent enough feature for me to use it in that way. So instead, I'm going to turn it into a flower, and the hummingbird and the colours in the hummingbird just become part of the flower. But I did decide I wanted it to be quite a bold flower, so I did a second flower on the cream cardstock. And I think on the last video I talked about the fact that I've not really used the dies that much in this particular magazine kit. So I did remember to do that, but what I've not done is cleaned my plates, and so I end up with quite a lot of muck on my white embossing on that particular one. Oops. And then the second one, the second leaf, I didn't tape it down well and it shifted in the die cutting machine, and I don't end up using the leaf anyway. But yeah, so never mind. Sometimes you win some, you lose some. And in that case, didn't work. But my flower itself is lovely. Now, because it's got those kind of pointy bits, I decided to go in with the wet glue, but just a really fine amount around the edges. Just because I thought, A, it gave me a bit of wiggle room, but it also meant that I could get the glue all the way towards the end. Now, the sketch has kind of got it, so you've got the sentiment going down the middle bar, and so that's what I decided to do. I had still got the sentiment from the last time I had used this card kit in the stamp wheel, so I did need to adjust where it was, but pretty much kept it the same, and decided to keep in with the embossing on the flower to go with the white embossing. So it's a nice simple sentiment. This, it was just one from a different card kit, magazine kit, sorry. It was an old creative stamping one. At some point I have done some doctoring of the stamp, so it actually is happy and birthday are separate, but you can easily put them back together again so that it becomes in a line. So I decided to ruffle up the edges of just that purple panel, and then I'm going to sight my triangles in there. I did decide for some reason to use double-sided sticky tape. Actually, I've done that on a few of the cards from today. Don't know why. Just that must have been out for a different reason, and that's what I've ended up using. For me, it's whatever's to hand most of the time. Sometimes I think about my glue and I make a choice specifically, but on something like this, I wasn't really thinking it through. Now, I have decided I'm going to add it to this 5x7 card blank. So all of the Kendra's Card Challenge sketches are designed to work with the American sized cards, which are 5.5 by 4.25, or 5.25 by 4.5. Can't remember, one of those. And it's not quite a quarter of an A4 in the UK. So it doesn't work. They're sort of like shorter and fatter than the British A6 size. So I mix mine up. Sometimes I trim them down to make them smaller so that they will fit our card sizes, and sometimes I put them on 5x7 card blanks, and sometimes I put them on 6x6 card blanks, which you will see on card number 2. But in this case, I've used a 5x7 card blank, and then I decided that that flower just needed something else. So I went into my stash and just chose 2 leafy sprig type dies and decided they were perfect. Just did some of the scraps of the lilac cardstock, and that helps to just finish off the card. I'm adding some gems. I add a gem to the centre of the flower and then 2 further up, and then I'm just ruffling up a little bit more onto my card blank. Job's a good one. I love that blue and the mottled kind of background paper. I just think it's gorgeous. And it's really nice to do quite a large focal element like that flower. It's not something I normally do. Right, we're on to card sketch number 6. And this time I totally and utterly don't follow the sketch. So you can see the sketch is that one down in the bottom right hand side. And it's got these kind of strips going across. But I really wanted to try and use this large card base blank topper thing that's in the cut apart pieces. So I added that onto my piece of 6x6 and then decided I would still do the strips of cardstock, but I was not going to keep it as both a portrait card and I wasn't going to keep it at the full size. I was going to trim it down a bit. And I think this is a little reminder to everyone. You can follow a sketch. You don't have to follow it completely. You don't have to do exactly what it says. Just use it as your jumping off point, and that's what I did here. So at one point I was going to do it all the sort of more muted coloured papers, but then I changed my mind and decided, no, I was going to do all the patterns next to each other. And then you can see I've just took some slithers off, but then I end up, I think, no, I really want to just mount it onto something else. Oh, at this point I'm deciding whether I want to add another topper. I think that comes in and out a couple of times because I'm umming and ahhing over it. But yeah, I decided to just slightly reduce that down so that it'll fit on that piece of the peach cardstock that just helps to separate it from the other panel. And I'm really happy with how this looks. So yeah, it's not the sketch. It's not exactly how it is that Kendra has designed it, but I'm still happy with how I've done it. I also know, yes, I've also added another piece of pattern paper there. But the reality is that's one of those card topper ones. I probably wouldn't use it just as a card topper. I probably would want to do it with other things. And it just, to me, it spoke to me and told me, yes, now I want to get used. So I chose one of the sentiments that was, again, in the cutter parts. I mounted it onto, well, I cut it out and then I mounted it onto some more of the cardstock. And now I'm pulling in a different card topper, and this is the one that I end up using. But I do end up raising it up onto some adhesive foam just to make it that little bit more special. And I love this. All of those different patterns are not things I would have ever thought to go together, but it worked. And it turned out to be quite a quick card as a result. So I've added in some sort of like sparkly green and gold gems. And that's that card done. And I love it. I think that's really, really cute, really pretty, and quite a special card too. So that is the second of the cards that I've got to share with you. And now we're going to move on to the third card, which was Sketch 11. And Sketch 11 just has those 5 panels of the pattern paper. Now, my pattern papers were all fairly similar because they were all the fuchsia flowers, just different colour tones, different backgrounds. So it was difficult to tell which ones were meant to go where. So I did turn them over to kind of identify which ones were the same pattern, because clearly they're not. They're all different bits of floral. And I thought, well, that'll work. So I did end up turning it upside down and just using the grid mat to try and pull these elements together. And just use that Kingston's adhesive, which is permanent, but it sort of works as a temporary adhesive in the beginning. So if I'd have not quite got my positioning right, I could have taken it off. And I'm just strengthening it now by putting the double-sided sticky tape on the back, and that'll just keep it all together and just strengthen that sort of panel. Now this is where I could have been what's the word, dishonest. I'm not showing you this, but I made this background panel with just some light pink ink on the brush, and then some splatters. And then I thought, right, I'm now going to go dry that off and I'll put the sentiment on. And you're going to see me do all of this and then realise that the sentiment is in the wrong place because I haven't actually tested it against where those little panels are. And you can see here how I've doctored that stamp at some point and pulled it apart. So stamp that down. Lovely, happy, great. This is all lovely. Clean up, tidy up. I then go, put my things in and realise I've covered up the H. And I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. However, my friend Helen always says, there are 2 sides to a piece of paper. So I kept this in This time sensibly put my little pieces of paper on the top, didn't stick it down or anything, but so that I knew where they were, and then went in, did the stamping, and now did the ink blending and the splattering, etc. At this point. So yeah, I could have just made it look more professional, like I always know what I'm doing, but the reality is don't. Sometimes we all make mistakes. And here you go, you can see that this is now a double-sided piece of paper. I did keep this quite simple, kept it flat. You'll see I do end up adding some elements, but at this point I'm like, oh, that's really cute, and I just add it to the pink panel. And again, I am going to add it to a white card blank, size 5x7, and it works quite well. But I did decide, no, it needs something else. Just needs something else. I think that would make a lovely card as is. But I decided, let's go for some little flowers, just as a little embellishment, cluster on top of the pattern papers. So I took the same ink and stamped it onto the pink cardstock. Now, because the Kingston's Crafts pastel cardstock that I'm using for all of my cardstock that's coloured on this has got a little bit of a coating, it takes a little while for the ink to dry, so I thought I'd got enough time, it turns out I can't use tweezers very well, to emboss it. So I just added the clear emboss powder over the top, and it just gave it a lovely finish. So yeah, I did decide to fussy cut these just to make life easier. Actually, I don't think that the die that I've got cuts out the smallest flower. Now I can't remember, and I'm not sat near them, so I can't go and look. But yeah, so I just fussy cut these out and just added them in a little cluster of 3 on top of the pattern paper. I did use my wet glue to glue these in place because I was conscious that they might stick to each other a little bit with the embossing, and I wanted to make sure that they'd stuck nicely. And I sort of tucked them so that they were sort of interwoven, overlapping. What's the word? Something like that. I added some pink gems whilst I try and think what English word it is that I'm trying to come up with. And then I did it dead simple, mounted that onto the white cardstock, simple as. So that's 3 more cards done. So that's 6 in total from KCC 19. Really enjoying these. I don't think I'm going to make any more right this moment. I'm going to pack everything away. So please do subscribe to see future videos. Like if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.